What's up, family? Welcome back to the Stop Sinking Show, where we go from struggle to flow. There's a multivariate equation of what makes for successful communication and what makes communication degenerate. All the things rooted from the ego, the aspects of your nature that you identify with, that scream for recognition, fight to be seen and heard, all those can come up and get in the way of healthy communication between two people. By no means do I want to make this a single variable, single issue discussion. There are a lot of nuances, tonality, intention, prior built up rapport are among many things that affect the health of a relationship. However, after reading Charles Duhigg's book, Super Communicators, and learning that at any given time, we are having one of three types of conversations or a mesh of each, an emotional one, a social one, or a practical one. After reading it, I couldn't help but reflect on and try and trace when and where does a conversation fall apart. And what I'm starting to realize is that it is in the misjudgment of the type of conversation you are having when simply one person loses track of where the other person is in the conversation, what type of words they are using, emotional or practical, that then this misjudgment that can snowball into communication and relational breaks. What I find myself doing and find as the main cause of issues between me and other people in discussions is that I tend to lean towards the practical and try to rush back into practical solution-oriented type of discussions as soon as I can. Many men have this issue because we are rewarded in society for being problem solvers. That then can make it difficult for us to do the opposite and hold space, not solve problems, for the other people in our lives when they are looking to have an emotional conversation. Not only do we frustrate ourselves with this, but we also leave the other person feeling like they were not heard or cared for. But it goes deeper than this, because it's not just about having the discernment to know which conversation you are having, but also what makes communications fail is that when you try to take the pull of emotions and pass them off as practical next steps. And of course, vice versa, when you take the practical and try to impose it on negotiating with emotions. What I've noticed as the downfall of a lot of communication and ultimately leading to the demise of a relationship is that a lot of times, because the emotion isn't acknowledged, loved on, and seen, that then it forces the person who is having the emotional reaction to use that emotional state as a starting off point for negotiation. And that can become a difficult thing to navigate because emotions are shifting and volatile and self-righteous. And so the attempt at negotiation is also erratic and hard to pin down the terms of. Really, because emotions are meant to be felt and felt out. And then practical discussions can happen about how to move forward. And unless you do your part to help the emotional communication happen and make it feel seen and heard, and if you're not doing that, what will happen is the emotions will try to pass off as practical. The emotions seep in and creep into what practical outcome that could have come from it. The emotions will try and present themselves as practical and then try to set terms that might be unreasonable or unsustainable for healthy communication and a fruitful relationship to continue. Why? Because emotions shift and are subject to change constantly and cannot be pinned down into how-tos for living. They cannot be used as a platform from which you decide on how to move forward. While all the triggered emotions offer a rich source of information on what a person might need or what fears or issues they are dealing with, it is by no means a place where agreements can be made or commitments can be had. And if you fool yourself to think that they can and build a whole world around it using emotions as the guide, then prepare for the peace you have negotiated to be just as unstable as the emotions that gave rise to it. What I see clearly is that an emotional state will try to profess itself as practical. It will impose on the parties involved a way of being that really offers no clear and viable path forward. Sure, the person might have all these emotional needs, and you might even be willing to meet them, but because you cannot rely on the emotional state to do the negotiation, whatever it is that you do agree to might change just as fast as the emotional state. And then you are back to square one, chasing each other's tail. What I'm saying for you to take away from this discussion is first to know what type of conversation you are having or communication that you are engaged in. To listen clearly if it is emotional words or practical words that are being used. Mirror and match the emotional ones first until they are felt and seen and are diffused. And then begin the process of having a practical discussion. If for any reason you don't manage this and try and do it out of order and try to take the emotional words as a prescription for how to behave, or do this yourself and try to pass off your emotions and profess the way another person should be because of how you're feeling, then you too might walk away without the actual relational harmony that you had hoped for and thought you agreed upon. What's happening is that you are displacing your emotions into the part of the discussion, into the part of the discourse that relies on clear communication, that seeks to understand the true depth of terms that you are trying to come to, the practical side. And then don't be surprised then if you find yourself having to have this same emotional outburst again and require another recalibrating conflict that tries to bring your relationship back on course so that you can coexist and support each other. Neither you nor the other person can rely on any agreements, conciliation, or settlement that was achieved in a heightened emotional state. It will end up requiring reconciliation over and over again until either the temporary passing emotions completely infiltrate the foundation of the relationship and erode it altogether, or until you have gotten it out of your system enough to then have a practical discussion. Until cooler, more settled, and stable heads prevail, until you know the place where emotions belong, and get to the place where the practicality of your discussion is actually viable, until you stop displacing your emotions and try to pass them off as practical, until you stop using them to impose onto others as a viable way to move forward, you will not return to a stable ground where growth can be fostered and nurtured. Your emotions have their place. Your reasoning has its own place. Just know which place you are in. Anytime those lines get crossed, the connection breaks. I love you, family. Stay true always. I'll see you on the next show.